The room was silent except for the faint hum of the rain outside and the ticking of the clock on the wall. A man sat trembling in a chair across from Jungkook, his knuckles white as he gripped the edges of the seat. Jungkook, you disappoint me, Jungkook said, his voice low and calm, but it carried a weight that made the man flinch. You promised good result. Instead, you brought me excuses. The man stuttered, his voice shaky. Jungkook, time? Jungkook cut him off. Leaning forward, his presence was suffocating, his dark aura filling the room. You think I am running a charity here? The man's eyes widened before he could speak again. Jungkook raised a hand. Two guards stepped forward, grabbing the man by the arms and dragging him out of the room. Jungkook didn't look up as the door shut behind them. He exhaled slowly, his jaw tight, and leaned back in his chair, rolling his shoulder. Boss, Jungkook, if you are here to waste my time, you better think again. Jungkook said sharply, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. Oppa. A small voice called out. Jungkook's head snapped up instantly. Vian stood in the doorway, two books and a pen in her hand. She blinked at him, her wide eyes flickering between him and the heavy atmosphere of the room. Jungkook's entire demeanor shifted in an instant. Jungkook, princess, he said softly, leaning forward in his chair. What are you doing here? Vian, I. She hesitated, glancing nervously at the room. Am I interrupting something? Jungkook chuckled, shaking his head. She stepped inside hesitantly, her eyes darting at him. Vian, you sure? You look like you were about to eat someone alive. Jungkook smirked, the warmth in his eyes growing. Jungkook, oh really? Well, I wasn't. What's up? Jungkook leaned back, crossing his arms as he raised a brow. Jungkook, Meth, you are asking me for help? Vian, yes, you, she said, pouting. You are the genius, right? His smirk widened, but his tone softened. Vian pointed to a messy equation on the page, pouting slightly. Vian, this one. I have tried it many times and I keep getting it wrong. It doesn't make sense. Jungkook studied the problem for a moment, his sharp eyes scanning her scribbles. Jungkook, you are trying to solve this before isolating the variable. Start with this step first. Vian leaned over the desk, watching as he neatly worked out the first part of the problem. Vian, you make it look so easy, she mumbled, her lips pressing into a pout. Because it is easy. Jungkook replied, smirking as he handed her the pen. Try it again, but slower this time. Don't rush. Vian huffed, taking the pen reluctantly. Vian, I didn't rush it. Jungkook leaned back in chair, resting his arm on the desk as he watched her. Jungkook, you rest because you are impatient, or the handwriting wouldn't look like you were running out of time here. Vian gasped, looking at him in mock offense. He smirked, leaning forward to flick her forehead lightly. Jungkook, sure, only if you try not to rush and write properly. Vian swatted his hand away, laughing despite herself. Vian, you are so mean, Oppa. After a few more minutes of scribbling and quiet guidance, Vian finally dropped the pen and threw her hands up. Done, she said triumphantly. Check it, genius. Jungkook grabbed the notebook, scanning the page carefully. His brows furrowed slightly before he gave a small nod of approval. Jungkook, not bad, he said, sliding the notebook back to her. Vian's eyes widened. Vian, wait, not bad, that's it? I worked so hard. Jungkook smirked, crossing his arms. Jungkook, fine, it's good. Happy now? She grinned, leaning back in her chair. Vian, very. See, I told you I am smart. Jungkook, sure you are. Jungkook replied with a chuckle. Now pack this up. Vian started gathering her things, but she paused, glancing at him slyly. Vian, speaking of dinner, did you know Jaehyun is going to be there tonight? Jungkook frowned instantly, his relaxed demeanor replaced by something darker. Vian, you remember him, right? The guy who came over last month, he said I looked really pretty that day. Jungkook jaw tightened and his sharp eyes narrowed. Jungkook, the guy who couldn't even look me in the eye when he shook my hand. Vian, Oppa. Vian laughed, shaking her head. Jungkook, good. Jungkook said flatly, his tone low and firm. He should be nervous. What's he even doing at family dinner? Vian, he's dad's friend's son. They are coming over tonight. Didn't you remember? I knew it. You have a short term memory loss. Ryan rolled her eyes, giggling at his remark, while Jungkook leaned forward, resting his elbow on the desk as he fixed her with a serious look. Jungkook, and yeah, don't let him sit next to you. Ryan's eyes widened, and then she broke into a grin. Jungkook, jealous? Jungkook scoffed, though his sharp tone betrayed him. No, I'm just looking out for you. You don't need some guy near you. Ryan tilted her head up to look at him, her eyes glinting with mischief. Jungkook leaned down slightly, his voice low as he spoke. Jungkook, you are imagining things, kid. Now come on, let's go now. Ryan stuck her tongue out at him as she grabbed her books and followed him out of the office, a laugh bubbling from her chest. Jungkook smirked, holding her wrist softly. Next day, during dinner, the dining room buzzed with forced laughter and shallow conversation, the kind that never sat well with Jungkook. He sat at the far end of the long table, his sharp gaze cutting through the noise. His mother and father seated at the head. Ryan sat beside Jungkook, her small frame nearly swallowed by the chair. She was quiet, as always, her fork pushing the food around on her table. The chatter around her felt overwhelming, her reserved nature making her fade into the background. She never talked much during these. She always had been the type to avoid attention and hated being on the spotlight, especially among the family members. Jungkook is not the oldest among all the cousins, but he is the most successful among everyone. His reputation crossed countries and territories. No one could do it like Jungkook. He is the most curious mafia and most successful, youngest CEO of the country. They wouldn't match his level even in upcoming years. Mrs. Jeon, why can eat properly? Her mother said gently. Ryan, yes, mom. She murmured, taking a small bite to appease her. Jungkook glanced at her, the corner of his mouth twitching in amusement. He leaned closer, his voice low enough for only her to hear. You are acting like they have poisoned your food. His sharp eyes softened as he gave her a faint nod, silently acknowledging her discomfort. At the other end of the table, Uncle Mino's loud laugh boomed again. Mino, Jungkook, he called out, drawing the younger man's attention. Jungkook's expression didn't change. He set his glass down slowly, the sound of it meeting the table louder than necessary. Jungkook, I speak when it's worth my time, he said simply, his tone making it clear he wasn't pleased getting questioned. Mino's wife, Suni. Well, your father must be proud having such a successful son, though. I do wonder if you are spending too much time on work. Her gaze flicked to Ryan, a sly smile creeping across her lips. Your sister looks a little neglected, he said firmly, his deep voice cutting through the room. His gaze was calm but commanding as he continued. Jungkook, she is loved and cared for more than you can even imagine. Mrs. Jones, seated at the head of the table, added with a warm smile. Sonia's smile faltered for a moment before she quickly recovered. Sonia, of course, I didn't mean it like that. The tension eased slightly until Mino's daughter Sujin leaned forward, her voice far too cheerful. Ryan froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. Her eyes darted nervously around the table as she felt the heat of everyone's gaze on her. Ryan, I, I am doing okay, she mumbled, her voice barely audible. Sujin, just okay? Sujin, mom said you got some pretty bad grades last term. Is that true? Mrs. John. Sujin. Mrs. John interjected, her voice polite but firm. We don't compare grades at the dinner table, but Sujin wasn't done. Sujin. Oh, I was just asking. I think it's important to push yourself, you know? I mean, Ryan's always been a little shy, so maybe that's why Jungkook, she is doing better than you ever could. Jungkook said suddenly, his voice cold and cutting. The room fell silent. Sujin, I was just Jungkook. You were just trying to make yourself feel better by putting her down. Jungkook interrupted, his sharp gaze pinning her in place. Sujin's face flushed, her smug expression faltering as she fidgeted in her seat. Jungkook, funny how you love pointing fingers at others, Sujin. Should we point some back at you? Sujin shifted uncomfortably, her voice shaky. Sujin, I didn't mean anything. Jungkook, didn't mean anything. A gasp escaped from Mino, who turned to Sujin with wide eyes. Mino, what? Is that true? You told us you were sick. Sujin, dare I? Jungkook, oh, and let's not forget your brilliant idea to steal. Aunt Suni's hand flew to her chest. Suni, that was you. Sujin opened her mouth to protest, but Jungkook wasn't done. He leaned forward, his voice cool and deliberate. Jungkook, and then there's a little incident with Uncle Mino's car. Sujin younger's brother, perked up, his eyes wide. Subin, wait, what? That was Sujin. Mom grounded me for 2 months because of that. The room erupted in whispers and shocked gaps. Ryan sitting beside Jungkook had to bite her lip hard to stop herself from laughing, but a giggle slipped out anyway. Jungkook glanced at her, his smirk softening slightly. Jungkook, you are enjoying this, aren't you? He asked, teasing, his heart swelling. Mino, you scratched my car and blamed Sujin, how could you? Suni, and my necklace, do you even know how much that meant to me? Jungkook, it's funny how you always seem to be the loudest at this table. Sujin, maybe next time focus. Sujin's hands balled into fists. Under the table, her voice barely audible. Sujin, I'm sorry. Jungkook, what was that? Sujin sighed and spoke louder this time, glancing at Ryan. Sujin, I'm sorry, Ryan. I shouldn't have said what I said. Ryan, it's okay. Suni and Mino exchanged nervous glances before looking at Mr. and Mrs. Jeon. Mino, I think we should call it a night now. We will leave. Jungkook, sure. The door's that way. Ryan laughed at Jungkook's fake polite tone. Mino and Suni, whose turn to say anything about their daughter's actions, got up and left quietly, followed by their other uncle and his family too. After the dinner, Vian found herself in front of her brother's room door. She hesitantly knocked on it, the sound small as she heard his footsteps approaching and opening the door. Jungkook couldn't sleep. Vian nodded as Jungkook got aside. Come in. Jungkook, you okay? Vian, yeah. She sat on his bed and Jungkook came towards her, his face turning serious but his voice firm and steady. Jungkook, don't ever lie to me. Vian, I'm sorry. Jungkook, it's okay. You are really amazing, okay? Jungkook, don't let her words take a toll on your mind. People with jealousy and insecurity tend to cover their insecurity and fear by putting other people down. They feel superior, but they are not. Ryan, but I'm really bad at math. Jungkook, so what? Jungkook, kitten, always remember everyone have flaws. Even I have them. You are perfect the way you are. Don't try to change yourself for others. Ryan, I know, Oppa, but Jungkook, but what princess? Ryan, I think she is right. Jungkook, okay, you want to compare yourself to other in maths? She isn't even that good, princess. Last time I got to know from a professor that she failed 2 times in sports. Princess, your team won gold medal in football while you were the leader. You are far much better than her, okay? Don't ever think so low about yourself. You are just making it easy for her to put you down when in reality she can't even reach your level. Ryan nodded as he let his words sink in before she smiled. It's okay. You need some confidence, and I'm damn sure once you have confidence and belief in yourself, you will never let anyone disrespect you like that. He said as he sat beside her and pulled her in a very gentle hug. Ryan, you are right, Oppa. Jungkook, of course, and I will always help you. She nodded, agreeing with him as they spent their time together before she slept in his arms, peacefully and content that things will be hard, but her brother will always support her and have her back. People will try to bring her down.